It is BFM 89.9, the business station. My name is Rich Bradbury. It is Thursday, the 14th of December, 2023, 12:05 here in the studio. Now, earlier this month, it was reported in the news that Malaysia's social security organisation, SOCSO or Preparedness, has suffered a data breach involving personal data. A group self-described as ethical hackers posted a forum thread highlighting that the Preparedness portal, as well as a database of its internal documents, has been breached. According to a report by cybersecurity company Surfshark, Malaysia ranked as the 8th most breached country in Q3 of 2023 with 494,699 leaked accounts, a significant increase of 144% compared to the previous quarter. That was reported back at the beginning of December. Now, this is approximately 4 Malaysian user accounts being compromised every minute. The report also indicated that Malaysia ranks 5th globally in breach density, with around 5,436 accounts breached per day. And according to the Cybersecurity Malaysia Mid-Tier Threat Report 2023, the government sector experienced the greatest number of data breaches, while the telecommunications sector leaked the highest volume of data. In the first half of the year, the report said the government sector accounted for 22% of breaches, followed by telcos at 9%. And of course, with cyber attacks and data breaches getting even more rampant, is it a case of an organization's lack of IT security measures and practices? It seems that the hackers are always a few steps ahead. Is it possible to outwit them? If you get any thoughts, you can get us on our U-Mobile WhatsApp number. It is 018-789-8899. Of course, we are on X at BFM Radio. Helping me, as per usual, with this very similar conversation, good friend of mine, CF Fong from LGMS Berhad, and of course, cybersecurity consultant, on how we can enhance our country and organizations' cybersecurity posture and crisis preparedness to counteract this rising tide of cyber threats. CF, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Richard. Good to be here.
Another month, another breach, huh?
Yep.
Here we are again. We have to stop meeting like this. Every time I speak to you,
there's always a cyber incident happening.
There's always something happening, right? Now, and this is a question I normally ask whenever we speak. The current trends that we're observing in this current landscape of cybersecurity threats and data leaks, has it changed over the months, or is it the same kind of trends?
It has always been constant. I mean, if there's one thing I can describe that always go up, it's cyber attacks.
Right.
So the trend we have been observing recently is that hackers are getting more organized. They are more organized now. They are more resourceful. And we are seeing more corporate espionage happening. And certainly there are also white-collar crimes. And all of these have something to do with the vulnerabilities, the weaknesses of organizations who are not paying much attention to cybersecurity. And I think this is going to continue. This is a continuous issue. It's not going to
Now, here's the thing. Well, we've spoken about this many times, and it feels like we're banging our heads against a brick wall sometimes.
Yeah, indeed.
What are the simple, key cybersecurity measures that organizations should have in place to prevent these data breaches and unauthorized access to the sensitive information?
Well, I think ultimately we need to have a paradox change. Like, for instance, a lot of people, we still think that cybersecurity is an IT issue.
Yeah.
It's no longer an IT issue.
It's a people issue.
It is a people issue. It is a business survival issue because all of us are putting our business online. We are digitalizing everything that we do. Now, in the process of digitalization, if there's no cybersecurity in place, of course, the foundation is not there, right? For instance, a lot of, the common perception is that, hey, we get a lot of questions like, hey, we are not doing business online. We do not have any transactions happening online. Why should we be bothered about cybersecurity? Right. We're not a bank. We're not an insurance company. But then again, come to think of it, do you use office documents? Do you send emails? Do you receive messages from social media platforms? If you do, meaning that you are one of those targets that hackers will be prey on. So I think we have to change the mindset first, right? We have to recognize that cybersecurity is no longer an IT issue. It is an issue concerning everybody. So what's more for businesses, right? It is a business survival issue. Once a cyber attack happens, the cost of impact can easily outweigh the cost of investment for cybersecurity.
It's no longer a what if. It's more of a when.
Yes, it's a matter of when. We have to assume another new terms that I would like to coin is we need to assume breach. We have a new mindset that we have to assume breach, and in the circumstances of breach, do we know what to do? That kind of mindset.
So, when we look at the context of data leaks, what role do you think encryption plays in safeguarding confidential data, and how can organizations effectively implement encryption strategies? And the reason I bring this up is because, and I won't mention names, but it's a very large, very public corporation that have been storing data on a very simple database, unencrypted.
It seems like applies to a lot of multinational corporations. Well, I think encryption is good. The way I see is encryption is always the last line of defense because that is the controls they put in place in case the data has leaked out, and then at least you still have encryption to protect the data. Implementing encryption is not easy because it requires good security to manage the encryption key. So I would say if we are to look at the whole situation, right, to protect our data, we need to apply layers of security. So encryption could be the last layer of security. We use it as a last line of defense. But before anyone access to the data, we have to instill different types of controls, like access control, who can access or who cannot access.
Right.
We need to have policies and procedures to implement preventive measures. So encryption is good, but then again, managing the security key of the encryption key is also another security complexity there.
So there has to be tiers of access. Correct?
Layered of defenses.
Yeah. Just before we go into a break, what about these organizations? How can they kind of assess and prioritize potential vulnerabilities in their network systems to kind of proactively address security concerns before they get escalated, before they turn into a crisis like we've been witnessing over the last few days?
Yes. I think organizations nowadays have so many measures, but what I would like to summarize is this. Look at it from a prevention standpoint.
Yeah.
From preventive perspective, there's so many things we can do. We can do security health checks. We can do vulnerability assessment. We can even do penetration testing to test the security controls, the existing security controls, how valid, how secure they are. Are they really functioning? At least once a year, I would strongly advocate any organizations, regardless of sizes, you should carry out vulnerability assessment, penetration testing. You can either do it by yourself or engage experts to help you do it, but at least once a year.
I mean, I've spoken to people and companies where whenever there is an update to your system, whether it be Windows or macOS or whatever it is, at that point after you've installed that's probably a good time to kind of check the vulnerability of your system, I would imagine.
Yeah, exactly. The reason why patches are made available is because certain vulnerability has been discovered by the hackers. That's why the vendors and manufacturers release the patch. So there's always a reason why a patch is available. It's because you need to really patch so that the vulnerabilities and loopholes are no longer valid. So that's why, yes, it is always think prevention. Yeah.
And for those of you out there, and I know there are some of you out there, and I know there are some companies out there who have been maybe purchasing your version of Windows perhaps on Shopee or Lazada. Don't do that. You're constantly opening yourself up to these kind of issues, correct?
Exactly. Pirated software is one of the most popular ways for hackers to infiltrate into organizations through pirated software.
Yeah. Now, CF, one of the things that, if you've been following this story, one of the things that we saw was that the meeting immediately after the data breach had happened was also leaked.
Yes, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah. And I guess that kind of leads into the question of once you've found out that there has been a leak, what kind of steps should you take immediately following that discovery of the data breach to kind of minimize impact, mitigate potential risks to the individuals on that list, potentially, and in fact the organization in general?
I think from an organization perspective, the first thing we do during an incident, we call it an incident, is containment first, to limit what we can share and what we cannot share. And of course, with the containment, we need to do clean sweep. We need to start detecting and we need to start investigating and do a root cause analysis. Apparently, based on the case, we Unfortunately, I say unfortunately, it's because the meeting recording was published, and apparently the hackers are still within the network, still within the organizations.
As of today?
No, I mean, during the meeting, right? So during the crisis, because the hackers are still within the organizations, that's why it's very hard for you to carry out any kind of investigations. Because whatever you do, the hackers will stay ahead of you. Right. So I think the containment is one thing. We need to limit, what kind of information we're going to share, what kind of measures we're going to, the way how we're going to carry out the meetings even. So containment is the key during incident. And of course, during incident, coordination subsequently is also important, because without coordinations, everyone have their own idea. The vendors will come in, the software providers will come in, everyone have their own idea. So coordination is the key as well.
It almost feels like in a situation like this, when you found out that something has happened, having an online digital meeting seems analogous to what you should be doing. It's almost like you should get together in the same room and have a discussion. Physically,
because whatever it is, it's no longer be trusted. Can no longer be trusted, especially the network, whatever computers they're using for meetings shall no longer be trusted after an incident or even during the incident, right? So that's the whole point of doing containment. We need to contain how we share intelligence.
I mean, I personally, I would have been walking around the office unplugging everything, and then saying, right, let's get together and have a meeting. That's personally what I would have done. But hey, I'm not an expert. Anyway, what do you think are some of the best practices then for securely storing and managing personal data to prevent unauthorized access and ensure compliance?
Yeah, I think personal data becomes one of the greatest assets for organizations today. I mean, whether you use it for business or whether you are government agencies.
It has value.
It has, definitely. It is an asset, right? So the sad point is that a lot of the time we do not recognize it, that it has a value. It has an asset. In fact, it can become a liability, when you have a data leak, from asset turn into become a liability. So I think the most effective ways for organizations today is always think proactive, carry out drills, carry out cyber drills, carry out, threat intelligence search to see whether there's anyone sharing your data within the dark web, whether the hackers are talking about your organizations. A lot of these activities are proactive, can be proactively done, right? So before disaster happens, just retract back of what we have shared earlier, carry out penetration testing, carry out vulnerability assessment to understand what are the weaknesses within your organizations, fix it, before the hackers take advantage of it.
Why do you think that there are companies out there, though, that are so worried about doing these tests? Is it because, just kind of riffing here, that one, they might think it's too expensive. Two, they might think it's time consuming and they have to come offline and they have to do all of these things. And three, I'm guessing it's probably because they don't want to be made accountable. If they are found out that there are problems, who's going to fix it? And is it going to be expensive?
Yes, I think all the points they point out are very valid. I think one of the biggest issues why organizations, regardless of sizes, why organizations are not doing it proactively in terms of cybersecurity prevention, for a few reasons. Number one, cybersecurity itself is complex. When we talk about cybersecurity, we talk with different people. You talk to a software vendor, you talk to a network provider, you talk to a cloud service provider. Everyone has their own perspective of cybersecurity. So that adds into the complexity. That's the reason why it is important, right? When you are looking at your organizations, when you want to assess the security of organizations, talk to someone who are neutral, someone who are objective, who are not selling you any software or not a platform provider. Talk to someone neutral, engage with someone objective to give you an opinion. Because security, you need to look at it from a layered perspective, multiple layers, from external, internal, and different layers will have the different controls in place. So, example, if I talk to a software developer, so software developer probably going to tell me something that only related to software. If I talk to an antivirus vendor, the only security thing they would tell me probably just buy a new version of antivirus. If I talk to a firewall seller, same thing is going to happen. So that's why it is important to talk to someone who are neutral, engage an expert, talk to an expert who are neutral and objective, and can give you an overview of the entire
holistic view of everything. Okay. So we spoke a little bit about this earlier on, but I just kind of wanted to have a bit of a deep dive in, employee awareness as well, and training programs, this promoting this culture of cybersecurity For us, it's very important, of course. We're a radio station. We have documents and data that is incredibly important to us. Stuff like all of our podcasts have been backed up, research documents are backed up, and if any of that got out there in the real world, it would, for us, it would be embarrassing for one. And like you said, data has value. Yeah. There has been times, though, where we've had emails come in and it's a phishing attempt, right? I know it's a phishing attempt because I have conversations like these with you. And I've done my research. But we do have staff members, bless them, that might not be aware of this. Yeah. How important is it to sit down with them and say, look, this is what a phishing attempt looks like. This is a potential phishing attempt.
Yeah, I think I like the word that you used just now. A culture.
Yeah.
Security, it is a culture. There's no way you can impose cybersecurity mindset into anyone without building into the culture. So it is a culture. It is something that cannot be achieved overnight. It has to be continuous. It has to be ongoing. Like security awareness is ongoing matters, right? For any organizations today, like I say, regardless of what industries, what sectors are you coming from, cybersecurity, you need to build into the employee's culture. Regardless whether it's just for the top management or every layers of employment need to be aware about cybersecurity. So just like what you say, phishing emails are very common today. They even have a specific name for it, the kind of a name for these kind of phishing emails, business email compromise. Yeah. They pretend to be someone else who, you wouldn't normally send you instructions to do something else. So it is a culture. We need to looking at it at a cultural standpoint. We need to build into the company culture.
Okay. Just before we take a break then, in the event of a data breach, what communication strategies should organizations employ, I guess, to inform affected individuals, customers, and the relevant authorities whilst maintaining trust and transparency? And I guess that's a case of don't panic. Yes. How do you get your message across effectively without it looking as though you're still vulnerable?
Yeah, I think more importantly, just like to backtrack again, do containment. And for communication, it is very important for the organizations to have facts and data. You do not want to make any announcement without any facts. You do not want to tell people that you are secure already, but at the same time, hackers are still inside your network and spying on your meetings, right? So the thing is, we need to have data, we need to have facts, and that can only be achieved if we have an effective incident response plan. So the key thing for communication is also be transparent. We have to be transparent. But in order to be transparent, of course, we need to have data and facts. So it's all one link to another.
Okay. I think what I want to talk about now, though, is we've already spoken about what you should do immediately afterwards, right? But when we look at stuff like incident response planning, how important is that, and how can companies ensure that their response plans are effective during a crisis?
Yeah, you mentioned a very important thing, incident response planning. Now, incident response planning will serve as a guidance during incident, of course, but how do we know whether an incident response plan is effective? The only way to find out is to do cyber drills, is to carry out the drills based on the plan, simulate the events, and see whether everyone within the organizations know how to respond and whether the vendors are, following your plans. Because the plans do not just cover yourself. We're covering our third parties, including our vendors, our suppliers. Okay. So we have to do drills. The only key success factor for a plan to work is the drill.
Give me an example of how a drill would work. For people listening at home, what would the kind of process be?
Now, there are several ways for you to carry out drills. Of course, you must have an incident response plan first, right? You need to come up with an incident response plan. Within the plan, you need to highlight what are the most important assets for you. Based on the assets, what are the countermeasures you need to apply in case of incident? Now, you have everything documented out, and then you carry out the drills. Now, in order to carry out the drills, there are several ways. Depends on the depthness. Now, first, the easiest one would be the tabletop exercise. Carry out, get everyone into meeting rooms. You carry out the tabletop exercise verbally. And the more intrusive one will be, a more realistic one will be the actual drill itself. Like probably you're going to shut down a server for 10 minutes and see how people react to it. That is the most extreme part of an incident response plan, and that is the most realistic one. Of course, we do not suggest everyone to shut down the server immediately, right? To do this, but schedule a time for maintenance or whatnot, and do that as a realistic test, for your plan.
I mean, it almost sounds exciting to be doing that, as an employee.
Yeah.
But I understand how, important that is.
It is.
Especially, let's say, for example, you're in the finance sector, or you're in insurance or something like that. Something as quick and as important as that really does show you how organized your team are. If your response kind of planning is in place, correct?
Yes.
Because they should know what steps they should be taking.
Exactly. Everyone should know their tasks and know their roles and responsibility, especially during the time of crisis. Because during the time of crisis, it's the time that everyone get confused, panic. You're getting a lot of pressures from various parties. And without a plan, things will go haywire. That's the only way that you need to ensure that everyone is following the rules, following the plans. The plan has to be in place first.
Right. So we know that you need a plan. What kind of tools should should companies be looking at? The usual tools, I'm guessing, firewalls and antivirus software. But are there other things that companies should be looking at investing into?
Yes. Now, the firewalls and antivirus are what we call controls.
Right.
Now, the controls are in place to protect whatever we have, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at it from a higher layer, first of all, the management needs to have the buy-in first. The management need to recognize that cybersecurity, it is a business survival tools, right? Cybersecurity, we need to invest in cybersecurity. We need to know what are valuable assets, whether it's tangible or intangible. The management needs to have that kind of mindset first. Now, there are a lot of open source tools. There are a lot of open source standards, right, that teach you how to draft out an effective incident response plan. There are a lot of samples out there published by, for example, National Institute of Standard and Technologies, NIST. They have various documents that tells you how to develop information security policies for your organization, how to do proper access control. There are various documents out there. So to start, there are a few standards I can recommend. First is ISO 27001. This is ISO standard, basically talks about information security protection. And the other one is NIST. NIST, Google for NIST security policies. There are various templates available. So based on those foundation, build our policies. And with the policies in place, build the practice using the policies.
Right. Yeah. Well, when we look at things like collaborations, and this is something you'll be familiar with, of course, is when organizations choose to collaborate with, whether it be security experts, ethical hackers who can help identify these vulnerabilities beforehand. Is that something that they should be considering as well?
Yeah, if you do not have the capacity internally, we would just strongly advise you to engage someone independent and professional to help you to carry out the security assessment. The key thing is, like what I mentioned before, cybersecurity itself is very complex, depending on who you talk to. If you talk to a software vendor, they will sell you software. If you talk to a firewall vendor, antivirus vendors, they'll probably sell you different things and when it comes to cybersecurity. So always get someone independent, and they can give you a high-level overview of your business to tell you what are the potential risks at different layers of your businesses, and that will ensure that you'll have a much better overview of your cyber risk.
Right. And so when this has happened, what about things like post-incident analysis? Are those as important as the other things that we've
Absolutely.
talked about?
Yes,
Okay.
it is important because the only way we can learn from mistakes is to learn from the mistakes, right?
Okay.
Like, for instance, a lot of the incidents where we have observed, such intrusion happen, the victims just restore everything from backups, but they erase, in the process of doing so, they erase all the tracks that hacker left over. Then we have no way to find out what was the root cause, right? Without knowing the root cause, the same incident could occur again, right? That's why it is important to preserve evidence, to study the evidence and learn from it, and so that we can have a much better preventive control.
Follow the breadcrumbs, so to speak.
Yes.
How did they get in? Where
How
did they
get
go?
in? What tools did they use?
Yeah.
Whether there was any insiders involved or not.
Yeah.
We need to know all that.
Yeah. Now, of course, over the past couple of years, the big topic of discussion has been AI, whether it be ChatGPT or whether it be Bard or one thing or another. And of course, these become part of the evolving threat of cybersecurity, whether or not these things can be used or not. That's obviously something up for debate. What strategies should organizations and companies adopt now to make sure that they're ahead of the curve, even though you can't predict the future, but at least get yourself somewhat ahead of the curve? What should they be doing?
Yeah, I think back to foundation, culturally, we need to be more aggressive now to educate everyone about cybersecurity. I just want to give you one example. Remember just now we mentioned about phishing emails. You probably received an email giving you some instructions to do something.
Yeah.
Now, instead of sending out emails, we have observed scammers are using actual voice that is created by AI to instruct the employees to carry out certain functions.
I've heard that.
And it is so convincing and so realistic, the employees just follow the voice because you get a call coming from a CEO and it sounds exactly like the CEO, but it was created by AI. Now, this is one of the very realistic and practical threats that we are seeing right now. AI is really helping all of us to simplify a lot of things.
Yeah.
Now,
even the hackers.
Yeah, even the hackers. That's why we just have to fall back to the foundation. If we have a security culture in place, when we receive something that's out of ordinary, we receive instructions from some deviation from normal channels, we need to do something. We should just follow the plan, follow the policies. Do not simply just take instructions over the phone or through emails and carry out the instructions. So culture is very important.
Okay, so just before I let you go then, when we look at organizations that are highly secured, they're prepared from a cybersecurity crisis, what about large organizations compared to SMEs and readiness here in Malaysia compared to the Southeast Asia and globally? Where do we sit here in Malaysia? I mean, I gave some statistics at the beginning.
Yeah.
How accurate are those, do you think?
I think it's pretty realistic, and I would like to share.
But that's so scary, CF.
It's pretty realistic. I would like to share another sad news is that today hackers are no longer pick and choose. Regardless whether you are a bank or insurance agencies, or even you are a housewife or a small business owners. Hackers don't care.
They're casting a wide net.
Yeah, because the thing is, a lot of the hackings that are being done on the internet today are not done by human. They're done by software. And software that runs 24/7, 7 days a week. They do not take a rest. They do not have Christmas breaks.
They don't care.
They don't care.
Yeah,
and human only steps in. The human hackers only steps in when compromise already happened. Humans will take over the harvest, whatever the things has been compromised. So today, any businesses, regardless of sectors, regardless of whether they're coming from financial sector or not, are vulnerable. And we have been witnessing cyber attacks into various other sectors. Like over the years, we have seen utilities companies, airlines got hacked, logistic companies, hospitality sectors, hotels got hacked, casinos got hacked recently in Singapore. So hackers really don't care anymore, and everyone is a victim. Now, the sad thing is that a lot of the time, SME are the more vulnerable one because we have not been spending enough in prevention.
Yeah.
And when the costs...
And they already run on a very tight budget.
On a very lean budget. And the thing is, the cost of impact is so high to the point that sometimes it can put the business... You can close the business because of the cyber attacks. And we have come across real cases like that in Malaysia. SME got hacked, and they couldn't recover. All of their documents, invoices to the customers are all encrypted. The only way they have to recover is to pay the hackers like a few million ransoms, but they cannot afford it. And they cannot even restore anything from it. The business actually brought back a few years.
Yeah.
So I think everyone needs to start thinking, prevention is the key. We need to start thinking prevention.
What's the very bare minimum they should be doing?
Cybersecurity doesn't have to be expensive. It can be very economical. First of all, have a good practice. Don't use pirated software. That's number one. Don't use pirated software, and stay vigilant. Whenever there's any updates published by the vendors, always apply the update on time, right? And of course, culture. We can educate our employees without spending any money. We just have an internal security awareness programs, educate everyone about the phishing attacks, and teaching everyone what to do, write policies in the company, right? And all of these things doesn't cost, do not cost a lot of money.
And a lot of it's just common sense. If you don't know the sender, don't click on this. Do
not open an attachment.
Don't open an attachment. Yeah. Well, CF, as ever, it's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much, Richard.